Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we are going to be talking about life points. But more specifically, we are going to be talking about how life points really don't matter in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, people really don't talk about life points, even though they're a central part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Maybe that's due to the fact that we don't have a lot of life point cards that interact with our life points. I think that's something that Konami could really exploit a little bit more. Pretty much, life points in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Do matter. The fact that if you have no life points, you lose the duel. But we're not here to talk about that. We're going to be talking about life points in the terminology as you would the graveyard nowadays. How we use the graveyard as our second hand, as a resource, and we're going to be talking about how we use our life points as a resource in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! How can we abuse it, why certain cards out there are really good, and why we really, at the end of the day, shouldn't care about how many life points we have in a certain game. For the most part, that is, we're going to talk about exceptions and all of that thing. So this is going to be an in-depth video talking about life points, and overall what we're trying to get from this, guys, is for the most part, in most duels out there, in a standard duel, life points really you don't give a two hoots about anymore how much you have, really. So, why am I bringing this up? Well, for the most part, the only times I've ever heard people talk about life points mattering or talking about life points and their usage in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the second time I heard about it was originally a couple years ago when Patrick Hoban got this everybody run Upstart Goblin in their deck to make it a 37 card deck. That was the hype train back then, about 4 years ago now, was it? And people picked it up, oh, like, life points really don't matter. It does make the solemn cards good, but you draw into other cards, and that makes your deck thinner, gets you more plays, things of that nature. The original time I heard people talking about life points was in 2008, 2009 with Teledad format and Dad Return, after Dad Return mainly, but during the Teledad era, early 5Ds, when we had a certain card that we recently got back called Solemn Judgment. Now, Solemn Judgment is now at 1 of, but back then it was at 3 of. And you ran it in every deck out there because it didn't matter how many life points you had left. Solemn Judgment was going to give you a negation of some sort or another. And in that era of Yu-Gi-Oh! That was broken, and even today, if Solemn Judgment was at 3 of, I think everybody would run 3 Solemn Judgment. Like, do you not like free negation? That a card that's always going to be live, no matter if you have 100 life points left? I do. I know I do. So, yes, that was one of the main things I wanted to mention about, like, the different times in Yu-Gi-Oh!'s era we talked about life points, but nobody talks about it. In this video, we're going to be talking about life points as we would of the graveyard. Like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about how people originally in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Thought the graveyard is a place where it just goes, monsters go to die, they never get brought back unless it's monster born with premature burial, to nowadays being the graveyard is just your second hand and we just abuse it as much as we would the main deck. And the banish zone used to be, it's gone from the game, you're never going to touch it again, you're never going to see it, to like, oh, Omega and other cards can bring cards back from the banish zone. Till now we have to have, if it's face down banished, that's like the permanent removal. It's not coming back at all. So that is like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Has evolved over time. Life points, though, have never really changed as much as that, but when we talk in life points in the same terminology as we would the graveyard, as we would the banish zone, abusing them, using them, life points interchangeably. Now, life points are a little bit more tricky compared to the graveyard. I could have a whole bunch of cards engraved, but that's not necessarily going to mean I'm going to lose the duel. While if I have a finite amount of life points, I'm really low on them, that could mean I'm in killing range, or a big monster comes in and kills me, knocks me off my horse and kills me, so to speak. So, how do we abuse life points in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! First off? Well, we have the solemn cards, your judgments, your strikes, your solemn judgment now. We have soul charges out there, and we gain life points if somebody Upstart Goblins us for free draw power. These are the ways in many Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks out there that we interact with our life points. And we take damage from life points, or we gain life points through little things. 500 here, burn 1,000. Trick stars, they burn you to death. So you understand where I'm going with that. We interact with our life points mainly on a basis of paying life points or doing something with gaining some life points in some way, shape, or fashion. Mainly losing life points, because the less life points we have, the more susceptible we are to monster attacks. However, I'm going to take this to a different step and talk about how life points really don't matter now. Now, we've talked about right now how we use life points, how we abuse it as kind of like the graveyard is our second hand. We abuse life points for solemn cards, mainly in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays. You know, pay this amount. Oh, paid 4,000 to reborn 4 cards with soul charge. We use it as a just take away life points, and then to gain advantage on our fields. Life points really don't matter anymore. Now, people have always said like, oh, you don't want Upstart in this deck because Upstart gains your opponent life points, making their solemn cards live. You don't like drawing cards, you're telling me? You don't like drawing cards, right? That's what you're telling me. I'd rather not draw another card where this card could be taken out in a side deck or whatever. You don't like drawing cards is what you're telling me if you don't like Upstart. Now, I get it. You know, in an age right now when we have 3 solemn strikes, warnings, judgments, it gives your opponent 1,000 life points. 1,000 life points, that's not a lot, unless you're running Trick Stars and you don't want to give your opponent life points to begin with. If you're playing a burn deck, yeah, you don't play Upstart. But for most decks out there, don't you like to draw cards? Now, drawing cards is a blank card I'm drawing into. It could help me with my play, or it could not help me with my play. That's why searching is always better than drawing. But Upstart Goblin's a great card, isn't it? Like, I know it's a tech card, but drawing into more cards. Now, granted, there are cards out there that prevent drawing right now in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That, if you'd rather run, instead of Upstart, you'd rather run Ghost Ash, or Ghost Ogre, or Gamma, or Effect Veiler, hand traps instead. Because that's the age of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're in right now, where hand traps are very dominant, quote-unquote, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Comparing to like a couple years ago when we had draw, search. Because now we have ways to stop all that. So it's not as good as it used to, and I get why people don't want Upstart in every deck. I understand. But the fact that we should consider Upstart a bad card because we give our opponents life points, most of the time I find that I've been in situations, and I've did a poll on Yu-Gi-Oh! Talking about, do you guys believe that life points really matter in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore? And I had a resounding like 85%, I think it was, that said life points don't matter in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And they would tell those stories of like, I activated Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning on my opponent one time, and I had like really low life points, and they had no play. I had stopped all their plays, and I won the duel, so it didn't matter how low my life points are, right? That's the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! That I really enjoy, that you can be in that moment of like, okay, I'm really low in life points, and I gotta play smart. Because now I'm negating my opponent's stuff. Do they have a comeback play? No. Okay, now I'm going to go off with my plays and win the duel because they have no response. You've drained them of their resources. That's one of the great things about Yu-Gi-Oh! I think you can play, more of a strategic game by doing that. Negate all your opponent's stuff. Now I go off. I know people are like, oh yeah, Ghost Ash, everything goes to her. Yeah, strategic, all right. No, that's not what I'm getting. I'm saying trying to play in that mindset's a little strategic. Beside the point of this video. What I'm trying to explain here is life points don't matter at the end of the day, guys. Giving your opponent life points, if it was like, I think if there was a card out there that said this, give your opponent 3,000 life points, draw 2 cards. Would you play that card? Would you? If they gave a new Upstart Goblin, instead of banish top 10 cards for your deck, pay 3,000 life points to your opponent, draw 2 cards. I think the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community as a whole would play that card. Why? Because time and time again in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I've seen people, doesn't matter if it's a draw card, what the stipulation is for the draw card, they will play that draw card. Card Demise, Upstart Goblin, Reckless Greed, and Dot Deck. It don't matter. If it's a spell card and it allows you to draw cards, people will find ways to abuse that card. They always do. They always do. And then people complain about it. You shouldn't run it because of this reason. It's a bad card because of this reason. that's what I'm trying to say. Life points at the end of the day, they matter. Yeah, they do matter. I mean, back in the day, you know, being low on life points meant that you were susceptible to things like Gaga Cowboy coming out and Gaga Cowboying you for game 800. Yeah, that used to be a thing. But nobody runs Cowboy anymore, as far as I know. But that's what I'm trying to say. Life points don't matter at the end of the day. And think about for yourself, how many games have you won on low life points, but you use something like a solemn strike, solemn warning, solemn judgment to negate your opponent's stuff, and you win off after that because you stopped. They had no play after that. Think about that for a moment. Next time you're building a deck or playing in a duel, think about your cards. You know, think about other cards out there that interact with the life points. And I think it's something that Konami could exploit a little bit more. Give your opponent this many life points. Do this, do this. You get this effect. I think it's a mechanic that Konami could play around with. We saw how successful Upstart Goblin was with paying giving 1,000 life points to your opponent, draw a card. I mean, you could maybe not draw power, but gain effects like, I don't know off the top of my head, but you get what I'm trying to say. Generic effects attached with giving your opponents life points. I think people would abuse them, and I think that's one of the reasons why Konami's never done that, honestly, to be honest, because people always get the effects. They don't care how many life points they get. They just, how many life points you have to give your opponent. If it's a good effect, they're going to use it and abuse it. But tell me your thoughts down below, guys, and until next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling. I'll see you guys next time.